She grew up with a single vow: to kill the Alpha King of the North. He burned her kingdom, took everything she loved, 18 years sharpening her aim for one heart. And then the war ended, in the worst way possible. They handed her over to the enemy, on her knees, as an offering of peace, a bride wrapped like a gift, with an arrow hidden in her sleeve. He should have had her killed. She should have driven that arrow in on the first night. But the man she swore to hate cut her ropes. And the enemy she came to kill began looking at her the way no one ever had. Two kingdoms that hate each other. Two bodies that were never meant to want this. Closer every day, and every day harder to draw that string. She has one arrow, only one, for the heart of the Alpha King. The question isn't whether she'll shoot, it's what she'll do when she realizes she no longer can. The ropes had been biting into Serena's wrists for too long. She knelt in the center of the throne hall of Thornhold, the Northern Kingdom, the stone fortress that had won the war and never let anyone forget it. The cold floor came up through her thin dress. The dust of the road still clung to her hem and her hair, and she kept her eyes lowered, because that was what a prisoner was expected to do. The hall was full. Wolves of Thornhold crowded along the walls. No one spoke. They were waiting for the king to decide what to do with her. An old man in a blue mantle stepped forward. "Majesty, Greywick has sent its offer of peace." An offer of peace. Serena nearly laughed at the phrase. "It is the old custom," the counselor went on, reciting to the court what everyone there knew by heart. "The defeated kingdom hands a bride to the victor. Greywick offers this one to wed our lord." A pause. "And end the war once and for all." It was her. The offer. The seal of a peace. Greywick had sent her as payment and cast her into the enemy's den. They called her a bride. They did not know what they were receiving. A bride. The word came from another corner, and it came with hatred. Serena raised her eyes just enough to see a man with a hard face, his hands clenched. "Greywick sends us a bride, Majesty. My son came back from that border on a shield. He was 19. His voice shook, but not with fear. "Blood is not paid for with a wedding. Send this envoy back the way they sent back my son, without her life, and finish what we began." A murmur ran through the hall. No one contradicted him. So there was a part of Thornhold that wanted no peace at all, that would rather have war down to the last wolf of Greywick, and that part had just called for her head out loud. So easy, Serena thought. Let them kill me here and now. Let it all end. But she had come for something else. That was when the scent reached her. Cedar, leather, something warm and wild underneath. It went into her chest and would not leave. And deep down, in a place she barely knew existed, something stirred. Faint, muffled, like a sound heard underwater. She pushed it down and the sound was gone. Footsteps came down the steps of the throne. Unhurried. Each one left the hall quieter. The king stopped in front of her and lifted her chin with 2 fingers. Serena stared at him. Red-haired, the color of old copper, his beard the same shade, his pale eyes studying her with no hurry at all. Dristan Vor, the Alpha King of Thornhold, 27 years old, and an entire continent bowed its head when he walked into a hall. She did not bow. Not for anything in this world would she bow. "Well, now," he murmured, low, only for her. "They sent me a lamb that doesn't know how to lower its head." She did not answer. The 2 fingers stayed under her chin. Dristan straightened. And when he spoke again, his voice changed. It lost the whisper and took on the weight of a throne. "Your son died in the war, Counselor. As many did. Our men, yours, Greywick's. That is why the war ended. A pause that cooled the whole hall. And that is why it will not begin again inside these walls over a woman on her knees. Cut the ropes. No one moved. I will not say it twice. A guard crossed the hall and cut the ropes. The blood came back into Serena's hands burning, but she made no sound. I accept Greywick's offer, said Drystan. She does not die. She weds me. The truce is sealed in her person, and whoever touches her touches my crown. The counselor swallowed what he had meant to say and turned his face away, but the hatred did not leave him. Drystan held out his hand to help her rise. She stood on her own, without touching it. The corner of his mouth lifted. As you wish, little lamb. No one there knew what she carried sewn into her sleeve. An arrow. A single one, slender, its tip coated in aconite. The herb the hunters called wolfsbane, the poison that closes a wolf's throat and stops the heart before the beast can heal. One drop is enough in a deep wound, and that tip held far more than a drop. No one knew that the kneeling lamb was the finest archer Greywick had ever had. Let him want you close, her uncle had said at the parting, and when he lowers his guard, an arrow. Only one. Into the heart of the king. She raised her eyes to the man who had just spared her and thought, so easy. It is going to be so easy. They led her through the corridors of Thornhold, and Serena let her body follow the guards, while her mind stayed behind. It was always the fire when she closed her eyes. She had been 6, the huts of Greywick burning against the black sky, the screams coming from all sides, her mother pushing her into the hollow between the roots of an oak. Stay quiet. Don't come out of here, no matter what happens. Her mother's scent, the only one she knew in all the world. She saw it through the gap. She saw her mother fall. It was the wolves of Thornhold, they told her afterward, when her uncle pulled her from the cold hollow before dawn. The Alpha King of the North ordered Greywick burned to the ground, and she grew up with that lodged in her chest for 18 years. That night the man who now sat the throne would barely have been out of childhood, a boy, not an executioner. It was not Drystan's hand that held the torch, it was his father's, the old King of the North. But the blood was the same, the crown was the same. It was the same throne that had sent the wolves to Greywick, and thrones are inherited whole, the glory and the debt. Someone had to pay for her mother. One corridor turned into another, torches, guards. She walked on, and as she walked, she remembered. It was Halvard who gathered the orphans of the pack that night, and it was he who took Serena home and raised her as if she were his own daughter, the regent who kept Greywick standing after the defeat, the only family she had left in the world. Uncle was too small a word for what he had been. He had been a father, in the absence of one, and every morning, since she was old enough to remember, he handed her the same vial. Drink, girl. Without this, you can't even hunt. You were born weak, the wolf came sick, and this is what keeps you standing. And she drank. She swallowed the bitter taste of root, made a face, and drank. Because it was her uncle who asked, and her uncle had never wished her anything but good. The wolf, though, that one never answered her right. She barely shifted, and when she shifted she came back exhausted, small, like someone who forces the body past what it can bear. A weak wolf, they said in Greywick. Good only for the bow. But at the bow, there was no one like her, and the bow had come from him. It was her uncle who put the first arrow in her hand, still a little girl. It was he who trained her, morning after morning, until the pupil passed the master, and the old man had nothing left to teach. And every time she sank 3 arrows into the same spot, it was his face she looked for, because Halvard would break into a smile and tell anyone who would listen that he was proud of the finest archer Greywick had ever had. That pride was the closest thing to love Serena knew, and she would have crossed the world not to lose it. "Your chambers, my lady." Serena walked in expecting iron and straw. She found something else. A wide room. A broad bed, a lit hearth, a thick rug, folded clothes that looked as if they would fit her. The room of a woman someone wants to please, not of a prisoner. The guards drew back into the corridor and the door was left only ajar. No lock, no clang of iron she had expected to hear her whole life whenever the dungeons of Thornhold were spoken of. And that unsettled her more than any chain. This is how you tame an animal, she thought. Comfort. Kindness. Don't fall for it. She waited until no one came. She knelt beside the bed, her back to the door, and opened the lining of her sleeve along the seams she herself had loosened 1,000 times on the road. The arrow slid into her hand. She lifted the mattress, worked it deep between the mattress and the wood. Let it drop. Smoothed the coverlet. No one searches for a weapon in a bride's bed. Then she took the vial from her pocket. The motion was so old, the body did it on its own. She glanced over her shoulder. The door ajar, no one. Toward the window, only the walls and the forest. She unstoppered the lead vial, brought it to her mouth, swallowed the bitter mouthful. The same old grimace. There. Now she stayed on her feet. Now the sick wolf did not drag her down. She tucked the vial away quickly, certain, as she had been certain every morning of her life, that no one in the world had seen her. She was wrong. Drystan had come up when the court finally let him go. He told himself it was only to talk, to explain how things worked, whom she should avoid, that no one would touch her while he drew breath. What a man says to the woman he has just torn out of his own court's hands. The door was ajar. He raised his hand to knock, and stopped. Through the gap, he saw the bride of Greywick checking the room over her shoulder with the caution of someone who has done it a long time and never been caught. He saw the dark vial come out of her pocket, her mouth at the rim, the quick swallow, the grimace. He saw the vial vanish back into the folds of her dress too fast to be medicine anyone takes without shame. The wolf stirred inside him. It creaked, low, alert. Drystan lowered his hand without knocking. There was something he had not said in the hall, that he would say to no counselor. The moment they brought her through the doors, her scent had struck him in the chest like a fist. And his wolf, which in 27 years had never lifted its head for any woman, lifted its head for her. He pushed that away. One thing at a time. Why does a woman drink in secret inside her own room, alone, with no one to hide from? What ill does she carry that she doesn't want anyone to see? Or it is no ill at all. It is something else, something sent from Greywick along with her. He drew back into the corridor without a sound. The conversation could wait. Kings do not ask. Kings find out. What do you drink in secret, little lamb? The future Luna of Thornhold, it seemed, needed 3 hours to learn how to hold a spoon. Serena had been sitting an entire morning in a straight-backed chair while a widow in a coif, Lady Orwyn, explained to her the difference between the broth spoon and the compote spoon. Luna. That was what they called the Alpha King's companion here, the she-wolf queen before whom the court bowed. Apparently, becoming a queen required an astonishing number of rules about cutlery. "You raise your chin," said Lady Orwyn. "A Luna never leans over her plate. The plate comes to her. And if I'm hungry? A Luna does not feel hunger before the court. Then the court of Thornhold is a pack of starving people pretending they aren't." Lady Orwyn's mouth disappeared into a line. Serena leaned back in her chair, satisfied. If she was to be a bride for show until she sank an arrow into a king, then let her at least be an unbearable bride. While the bride was learning not to lean over her plate, on the other side of the fortress, Drystan stood in her room with a lead vial in his hand. He had chosen the hour. The lesson kept Serena busy half the morning, far from here. Time enough for Torin to search her baggage. They were scattered through her chest, said Torin, lining the vials up on the table, one by one. 5. Identical, dark, heavy. 4 in the lining of the baggage, a reserve. This one here, wrapped in a kerchief inside the pocket of a dress, is the one she's using, I suppose. Torin was the beta of Thornhold, the second in the hierarchy and the only man in the kingdom who walked into a room without bowing. They had taken beatings and laughed together too early for him to feign reverence now. It's a woman in a room, Drystan. Maybe it's only perfume. Woman's medicine, one of those things they don't tell us about. You don't drink perfume in secret, glancing over your shoulder. Drystan turned the vial against the light. The lead let nothing show. Call Maeve. Maeve was the oldest healer in Thornhold, so old she swore she had attended the birth of his father. Her hands trembled when still and turned steady as stone when they worked. She unstoppered the vial, sniffed it, wet the tip of her finger on her tongue, and spat into the hearth that same instant. The color drained from her face. Where did you find this? It's Serena's. Drystan set one of the vials in her hand. The bride they sent from Greywick. She drinks from this every day, in secret. He stopped. What is it? Maeve held the vial in both hands, and her hands trembled. Medicine. It is not. Her voice came out low. This silences. She drew a breath. There is an herb that binds the beast from within, my king. On the tip of an arrow it kills. It closes the wolf's throat before it can heal. It is what the hunters use on the blade. But this here is measured out well. A little. Every day. And a little every day means what? Drystan asked. It doesn't kill. It binds. She pressed the lead in her hands. The wolf doesn't rise, doesn't shift, doesn't speak to its owner. It stays down there, alive and silent, moon after moon. And the girl withers along with it, weaker with every moon. Maeve raised her eyes. Until she believes she was born weak. The room fell silent. Outside, a crow cried on the wall. How long? Drystan asked. To cage a wolf to that degree. By the taste, by the way it's prepared? Maeve pressed the vial in her trembling hands. This girl did not begin yesterday, my king. This is a whole lifetime. A whole lifetime. Drystan went to the window. Down below, soldiers were training in the mud. He did not see them. He saw a woman kneeling who would not lower her eyes, crossing a continent as payment for a war, willingly drinking the poison that kept her weak, like someone taking a medicine. No one does this to themselves knowing what it is, he said. Either she doesn't know what she drinks, or someone convinced her from very early on that she needed it to live. It was not a question for a healer to answer. Maeve did not answer. Drystan could confront her. Put the vial on the table between them and demand to know who had given it to her. But she was a stranger from an enemy kingdom. If he confronted her now, she would shut herself away, or stop drinking and grow suspicious. And he would lose the only thread he had in his hands. There was a better way to pull a thread. Slowly, without the other end noticing. Maeve turned the vial upside down. Almost nothing ran out. It's near the end, my king. Enough left for 2-3 days, no more. And there Drystan saw the way open. The whole reserve was there in his hands. 5 vials. And the number said something. Greywick lay a few days down the road. 5 vials held her for a few moons. After that, she would have to send for more and wait out the whole journey back, unless she did not plan to stay so long. A bride handed over to seal a peace came to stay a lifetime, and would bring the means to keep herself a lifetime, or a way to resupply forever. This one had brought enough for a short time, and nothing beyond. Either she counted on sending for more the moment she arrived, or she counted on finishing what she came to do before the last vial ran dry. He did not yet know which of the two. But whichever it was, he knew what to do with those 5 precious vials. She would go on drinking every day, from her own hiding place, believing it was what she had brought from home, suspecting nothing. He only had to change what was inside. "So it's simple," he said. "You switch them all, and you put each one back in the exact place it was. She drinks from her own reserve, thinking it's what she brought from home. She'll never know anyone touched them." Maeve understood before he finished. "And what do I put inside?" "Bitter root, but something that does no harm. Same taste, same color, that goes down the same and sickens the throat the same." He turned one of the vials in the light. "And change the lead. Make vials just like these, same shape, in tin. Lead also sickens whoever drinks it, slowly, sickens even a strong wolf. I don't want anything more poisoning her, not even the vial she puts to her mouth." Maeve hesitated. "Tin is lighter than lead, my king. She might feel it in her hand." "She won't." His eyes were cold and lit at once. "She drinks with her eyes closed, on habit, has for years. She doesn't weigh the vial, she doesn't look. And her nose won't give anything away. It's dead as the wolf. She doesn't smell the metal, doesn't smell the root." A silence. "Do it well, and she won't notice the difference. And when her nose comes back to life, it'll already be too late. The poison will be gone, and we will see, moon after moon, what this lamb truly is when no one is caging her." The next morning, Serena drank as she had drunk for a whole lifetime. She took a vial from the lining of the chest. Her reserve, hidden by her, in the exact place she herself had left it. The taste was a little different, or she had finally grown used to it. She paused a moment, her tongue attentive. Then she shrugged at herself and drank. Little lamb. She did not need to turn. There was only one person in the castle who called her that. "Stop calling me that. I hear you told Lady Orwyn my court is a pack of starving people." Dresden was leaning against a stone arch, in no hurry at all. "I told the truth. Why does it offend you?" "No." A silence. "I just never pretend I'm not hungry." And he left, before she found the answer. Serena was left with the retort dying in her mouth and an absurd urge to throw something at his broad back. It was hatred, she told herself. Only hatred. The throne that took her mother. The crown she had come to make pay. The trouble was the heat rising in her face. Hatred does not warm the face like that. She found a beau on the 4th day, escaping yet another afternoon of etiquette with Lady Orwyn. It was a forgotten courtyard behind the armory, weeds between the stones, a straw target rotting in a corner. Left among broken spears, an old bow. The wood dried out, the string frayed. Armory refuse. Her fingers took it up before her head decided. It was like breathing. There were 6 crooked arrows in a fallen quiver. Crooked did not matter. She knew the flight of a crooked arrow better than most knew a straight one. She knocked, aimed at the target across the courtyard, loosed. Center. Another. Center. A finger's width from the first. For the first time since she set foot in Thornhold, her whole body relaxed. Here she was no peace offering, no future Luna, no one's lamb. It was only her and the target, and between the two there had never once been doubt in her life. She loosed the third. For a lamb sent on a platter, you shoot like someone who has already killed. She did not turn. His scent had already filled the courtyard. "How long have you been there?" "Long enough." Dresden came out of the shadow of the armory and looked at the 3 arrows sunk almost in the same spot. 3 arrows. Same place, with a bow that should have been burned 10 years ago. Where did a wolf learn that? Her blood went cold half a second. Careful. But she raised her chin. "In Greywick you hunt or you starve. Even the weak ones learn not to miss the rabbit. That was not the aim of someone shooting rabbits. He began to walk toward her, unhurried. Your stance is wrong. My stance won every tournament in Greywick. Greywick lost the war. And even so, you're afraid to turn your back on me. She knocked another arrow, only to have something to do with her hands. Little lamb, am I? You talk too much for a man who's supposed to be afraid of me. He laughed. Low, short, like someone caught off guard by his own urge to laugh. And then he was behind her. Close. One hand settled at her waist, light, and the other rose along her outstretched arm to her fingers on the string. His warmth hit her whole back. His beard brushed near her ear when he spoke. The elbow drops. Here. His hand guided her elbow. And you're holding your breath. Release it between one heartbeat and the next, not by holding the air. Serena did not hear a word about the elbow. She heard her own racing heart, loud enough that she was sure he heard it too. She felt the hand at her waist, the thumb resting on her hip, all the air full of him. And deep down, the wolf she had barely heard for a whole lifetime did something. A muffled scratch, a stretch, like a beast turning in its sleep. Loose the arrow, she ordered herself. Loose the cursed arrow and get out of here. She loosed. The arrow struck the edge of the target, crooked, far from the center. The first shot she had missed in years. His hand stayed at her waist a moment longer. Curious, he murmured, and she heard the smile in his voice. The hand didn't tremble until I got here. Serena stepped away, her face on fire. Furious with him, with the shot, and much more with the part of her that hadn't wanted him to take his hand away. I missed because you spoke in my ear and taught me wrong on purpose. Anyone would miss. Of course. He drew back, giving her room, his eyes never leaving her. And then, you're not training to kill me, are you? Her world stopped half a heartbeat. She forced her voice out flat, bored. And why would I kill you? My king. My alpha. Something crossed his eyes. The pale darkened a shade. Say it again. What? That. My alpha. His voice dropped. I like hearing you say it. The heat exploded in her face. Serena opened her mouth for a sharp answer, and for the first time in her life, found none. And he saw. Of course he saw. Train the elbow, he said, already turning. You're too good to miss because of a man. And he went, leaving her with an old bow, a crooked shot, and a heart that would not slow. Serena drew a deep breath. Once, twice. He's no fool. The realization dropped like cold water. That was the mistake she could not make, thinking that a man who had seized the throne of a continent would be easy to deceive. He teased, he laughed, he pretended distraction, and all the while he measured everything she did. You're not training to kill me? He had said it in jest, but no one asks that by chance. I have to be much more careful. She yanked the crooked arrow from the straw and stood turning the shaft between her fingers. The hand didn't tremble until I got here. Shut up, she said out loud, to no one. And even alone, she felt her face warm again. Serena woke without air. She sat up in bed with a start, her hand at her throat, the cold sweat gluing her nightgown to her back. The room was dark, the hearth reduced to embers, and even so she felt everything too early, too loud. The crackle of the coals, the wind beating at the window, the blood running in her own ears. And within, against her bones, something creaked, pushed, wanting out. The wolf. On other full moons, her wolf had barely stirred. Serena had always been the one with the difficult shift, the one who turned beast once a season if the goddess willed it. And even then, a small beast, thin, that came back to human skin exhausted, like someone who had made too great an effort for their own body. A weak wolf. It had been so for a lifetime. Not this night. This night the thing inside her snarled with a strength she did not recognize, beat against her ribs, scraped beneath her skin, wanting to tear her from the inside out. It hurt. It hurt like bone breaking before it breaks. Serena doubled over in bed, bit the sheet so as not to scream, and for the first time in her life was afraid of what lived inside her. What is happening to me? She thought of nothing, thought of no shoes, thought of no one who might see her. Her body decided for her. Serena crossed the room, pushed the door ajar, ran down a side corridor that led to the back of the fortress, past a service gate that a drowsy guard barely had time to notice, and ran for the forest, barefoot, the whole full moon night spilled white over the trees. She reached the first clearing and fell to her knees. And then the wolf came. It was not like the other times. It was a leap, a burst, her spine arching, her bones tearing and remaking themselves in a pain, her nightgown splitting down the back the instant her body ceased to be a woman's. Serena lifted her muzzle to the full moon, and the howl that came out of her was not the howl of a contented beast. It was of pain, of shock, of a strength that was finally rising after years trapped at the bottom of a well, and that did not know its own size. That was when the other wolf entered the clearing. Enormous. Dark fur with glints of copper under the light, shoulders as high as a man's chest, his eyes glowing a coal gold. Somehow she knew that scent. Cedar, leather. She knew it even without wanting to. Drystan. Her wolf snarled, drew back, its fur bristling. The shift had come raw, with no control at all, and the pain left her dangerous. A cornered beast, ready to bite whatever came near. He stopped a few paces off, without advancing. And when his voice came, it did not come through the air. It came from inside her head, low and deep. Let me in. It was his voice in there, where no one had ever entered. The wolf snarled, and Serena snarled with it, inside. No. Trust me, he insisted. No. You'll read me. You'll see everything. I won't. Only the pain. Let me take the pain. The wolf trembled, creaked, on the verge of shattering. But there was something in his voice, a bottomless calm, an authority that did not force, only waited, that loosened something in her. She did not know why, and she hated not knowing. She gave in. The moment he entered, it was peace. It went through her from muzzle to tail tip, a cool hand settling on a fevered brow, and the wild wolf that threatened to tear her apart from within simply lowered its head, stopped snarling, stopped hurting. Serena felt his presence there inside, beside her own, moving nothing, turning nothing over, only present, only steady, holding the storm until the storm passed. It was the most intimate thing anyone had ever done to her, more intimate than any touch, and she had no defense against it at all. Then, true to his promise, he withdrew. He left her mind as quickly as he had entered it, and the emptiness he left behind hurt in a different way. The wolf drew back. Serena's body became a woman's again, curled on the cold earth, panting, her hair stuck to her face, the remains of her nightgown scattered across the grass. She lifted her head, the shame arriving late and furious, and looked for something to cover herself. On a low branch, within reach of her hand, hung a thick wool blanket. It had not been there before. It still held warmth, and it held his scent. Serena pulled the blanket over and wrapped herself in it, her face hot despite the cold. When she looked around, the dark wolf was sitting a few meters off, his back to her, his muzzle turned toward the forest, giving her his back on purpose, waiting for her to cover herself. "Very gallant," she muttered, her voice hoarse, clinging to rudeness because it was the only thing still holding her up. "But don't play the saint. Any moment now you'll turn into a man, and you'll be just as naked as I am." The wolf turned only its head. The coal eyes looked at her a moment, and she would have sworn there was laughter in them. Then he rose, took a few steps toward the trail to the castle, and stopped, looking back, waiting for her. She understood the message without needing one. It was the full moon. The forest howled in the distance with voices that were not his, and she could barely stand. It was no night for an exhausted wolf to walk back alone among the trees. Serena clutched the blanket to her chest and began to walk, barefoot, with a wolf the size of a horse following 3 paces behind, between her and the dark. It was halfway along the path that it happened. A voice inside her, but not his. "You're stronger." Serena stopped. Her heart stumbled. The voice was low, familiar and strange at once, and it came from within, from the same deep place where the wolf had always slept mute. She had never heard that voice like this. Clear. Whole. In 24 years, at most a muffled murmur, a scratch without words. How? Thought Serena, without air again, but for another reason. You never spoke like this. You never spoke. I was always here, the wolf answered, and there was almost tenderness in it. It was you who didn't hear me. Serena stood still on the dirt trail, the full moon falling white among the trees, an enemy's blanket clutched to her chest and her own wolf speaking to her for the first time in her life. Behind her, the great dark wolf stopped as well. It waited. It said nothing. Some things a man understands are not his to interrupt. Why now? Serena asked, of the wolf, of the night, of no one. What changed? The wolf did not answer. Either it did not know, or it did not want to say. And Serena, who had come to Thornhold with an arrow and a certainty, went back to the castle that dawn with Dryston's blanket over her shoulders, his scent in the wool, and the terrifying sense that something inside her had begun to wake, and that there was no longer any way to make it sleep. Dryston waited, from the forest, until he saw her cross the back gate safely. Only then did he let the wolf draw back and become a man again, under the moon, his heart still beating on the wrong rhythm. He stood there a moment, hands on his knees, breathing like someone who had run a war. He had felt the change before she had. Her scent shifting day after day, growing stronger, wilder, more her own, as Maeve's vial did what it had to do, and the cage broke apart from within. And this night, lying sleepless in his own chambers, he had felt her wake on the other side of the fortress, the way one feels the air change before the storm. His wolf had risen before his reason. He had run after her without deciding to run, and when he entered her mind, to take the pain, for an instant he had felt what was in there. Not a weak wolf. She had never been a weak wolf. She was one of the strongest he had ever crossed, buried, bound, caged, screaming for a whole lifetime beneath the poison. Someone had done that to her on purpose. Someone had taken one of the strongest wolves born in a generation and convinced her, drop by drop, that she was the weakest of all. And there was the other thing. The thing his wolf had roared the second he touched her mind. The thing he had been pushing down since the throne hall. Mine. Dryston closed his eyes. By the gods, he murmured to the empty forest. Her of all women. The enemy bride. The lamb they had sent to seal a peace. And the woman his wolf already called his own, without her having the faintest idea. It took some time before Serena admitted what was happening to her. And what was happening was simple, and for that very reason unbearable. She was comfortable. Time went by, and Thornhold did not press on her. No one locked her up. No one watched her with a sword in hand. Apart from the afternoons of torture with Lady Orwyn, she went where she liked. She trained in the back courtyard with the old bow, ate in the kitchen when she did not want the court's table, walked the walls at dusk looking at the forest. And the wolf, which for a whole lifetime had barely answered, now ran with her. Stronger every day, more awake. Serena did not understand where that new strength came from, and she trusted nothing she did not understand. Remember what he said, she repeated to herself. Remember. Because her uncle had warned her, at the parting. If he throws you in a dungeon, better. It's what you expect, and it makes him easy to hate. But if he treats you well, girl, be even more suspicious. An enemy who gives you a good room is an enemy who wants something from you. A gentle man is the most dangerous of all. Don't be weak. Don't let yourself be fooled by a warm roof and a handsome face. So she made a point of remembering every day that Drystan's kindness was a trick, that the comfort was a soft chain, that the heart is a fool and the head is what wins wars. The trouble was that her head had been losing. And there was the other thing, the one her uncle had also said, lower, at the end, without looking at her. Use what you have. If you need to get close, get close. An alpha king is a man like any other, and a man is distracted by a woman in his bed. Make him want you. Then aim. Strategy. It was only strategy, Serena told herself, on the morning she decided to put it into practice. If I seduce him, he lowers his guard, and then I do what I came to do. It's coldness. It's a plan. It has nothing to do with me. A lie. I know it's a lie. There is something in him churning me up inside since the throne hall, and each day is worse, and I hate it. I hate that my heart races when he appears. I hate that his mouth fills my head when I should be thinking of arrows. I did not come to feel this. I came to kill him. Careful, whispered the wolf, deep inside, now that it knew how to speak. Shut up, Serena answered. You too. It was a servant who gave her the chance, without knowing. At this hour you won't find the king in any corner of the castle, said the girl, filling a basin, when Serena asked after him with the most bored excuse she could feign. Every day at dusk he slips off to the stream behind the woods. He goes alone. Says it's the only place where no one asks anything of him. The servant shrugged. Kings get tired too, I suppose. Alone. No guard. No court. So easy, thought Serena, and the word came with a taste of ash, because there was another thing beneath it now, something warm and shameful that had nothing to do with arrows. She went. The stream lay where the servant had said, behind a curtain of birches, the water coming down from the ridge into a deep pool before running on through the brush. And he was there, in the water to his waist, his back to her, the late afternoon light gilding his broad shoulders, his copper hair dark and wet. The scraps of his clothes tossed on a rock at the bank. Serena's chest raced. The arrow was in her room. She hadn't even brought it. And even so, her legs carried her to the water's edge, and her mouth went dry. And she knew, with a humiliating clarity, that she had not come out here for any plan. He spoke without turning. You move quiet for someone stepping on dry leaves, little lamb. His voice came low, amused, dangerous. But I heard you coming before you left the woods. Then he turned. And he looked at her on the bank, and in his eyes there was a question she did not know how to answer. And beneath the question there was another thing she knew far too well. He knows, thought Serena. He knows exactly what I came here to do. And she did it anyway. She raised her hands to the ties at her shoulder and loosened the first layer of the dress, slowly, letting the cloth fall down her arm. His eyes followed the movement, and the next instant caught fire. She went into the water. Cold, then warm near him, from the heat his body gave off. She kept coming. The bottom gave smooth beneath her bare feet. She came close, closer, close enough to see the drops caught in his lashes, close enough for her breath to strike his mouth. He did not draw back. He let her advance. He let her come to where there was only a breath between the two mouths. And she saw, with her heart in her throat, that he wanted it. The gold eyes, the locked jaw, his hand rising through the water toward her waist. And then, at the last instant, he turned his face, his mouth stopping right beside her ear. "You don't want to do this," said Drystan. The shame rose in Serena like a fever. "You're right," she whispered, and stepped back in the water, her face on fire, hating herself for having come so close, hating him for having seen through her. "I don't want to." A lie again, and they both knew it. Drystan looked at her a second longer, something struggling behind those gold eyes, and then it was he who moved away, going toward the bank, giving her his back and the space she had just thrown away. He came out of the water, reached for his shirt on the rock. Serena turned to leave as well, her pride in tatters, her only wish to vanish from there before the tears of rage could fall. And the bottom vanished under her feet. One step too many, near the mouth of the pool, where the current went down into the brush. The water seized her by the legs and pulled, cold and strong, stronger than anything she could face, and before Serena could cry out, she was already under, spinning, the world turning to dark water and bubble, and the weight of her own clothes dragging her to the bottom. She struck a submerged branch, lost her air. The wolf inside her howled in panic, but no new strength serves when you don't know which way is up. Dark. And then a hand closed on her arm like iron. Drystan tore her from the current with a wrench that hurt, his arm crossing her chest, carrying her up, to the surface, to the air. Serena broke the water, coughing, spitting, clutching at the first solid thing she found. Which was him, his bare chest, his shoulders, the only firm thing in a world that had just tried to swallow her. "Are you all right?" His voice broke. Nothing of the king was left in it. Nothing of the teasing, nothing of the calm. His hand held her face, his eyes sweeping her for blood. "Serena, look at me. Are you all right?" She had no breath to speak. She could only nod that she was, still coughing, her fingers dug into his arms. And then she realized how close they were, his chest rising and falling against hers, the water running off them both. Their faces very near, his hand still at the curve of her face, his thumb by accident at the corner of her mouth. The fear in his eyes turning into something else, the gold coming back. Neither of them decided. It happened. His mouth found hers, or hers found his, and there was nothing gentle in it. It was his hand rising to the back of her neck, his fingers in her wet hair, pulling her closer. It was her hand closing on his shoulder. It was his tongue, and the taste of the stream water, and the impossible heat of the two bodies in the middle of the cold. Serena's thought simply stopped working. There was no plan, no arrow, no uncle, no kingdom. There was only that. Only him. Only his mouth. Him. The wolf, deep inside, sighed a name Serena was not yet ready to hear. And that was what startled her back into her own body. She pulled away, panting, her hand at her mouth, her eyes wide on him, and he looked at her with his breathing as ragged as hers, the gold still lit, not letting go of her entirely. Neither of them said anything. What was there to say? That it had been an accident? It hadn't. That it wouldn't happen again? They would both know it was a lie. They came out of the water in silence. He held out his own shirt for her to cover herself, and she took it without looking at him. They went back to the castle by the woodland trail, side by side, without trading a word, without trading a glance, each locked in their own astonishment, both pretending with all their strength that none of it had happened. After the stream, they became masters at avoiding each other. Drystan stopped appearing in the corridors, where before he was forever turning up. Serena took to eating in the kitchen every night, so as not to share a table with him. When they crossed paths by chance, a gallery, a courtyard, the door of the hall, it was a curt nod, a frozen majesty from her, a silence from him, and each went on too quickly. And it did no good at all. Because she caught his scent before turning a corner. Because her skin knew when he entered a room, even with her back to him. Because at night, alone in the too-good bed, her mouth still remembered his mouth, and the wolf inside stretched and said things Serena ordered it to hush. Avoiding him only made his presence louder. It was like trying not to think of a fire inside your own house. Each day she woke a little stronger, more awake, more full of that thing growing in her that she still could not name. And each day she wanted him a little more, and each day she hated herself a little more for it. "I came to kill this man," she repeated, washing her face in the basin each morning. "I came to avenge my mother. Don't forget that." The court of Thornhold did not let her forget who she was there. It was at a banquet that Drysten could not excuse her from. The future Luna had to be seen, Lady Orwyn had said, and Serena was placed at a table full of silk ladies with thin smiles, far from the king, in the midst of the best-born she-wolves of the kingdom. They circled her the way a pack circles the weakest. "The Bride of Greywick," said one, rolling her cup between her fingers. "Tell me, is it true you eat roots in the winter? I've heard that in that end of the world, when the game runs short, you eat tree bark." "When the game runs short, we hunt better," Serena answered, without lifting her eyes from her plate. "It's only a matter of aim." Little laughs. But not the little laughs she wanted. "How charming," said another. "She thinks she'll stay." The woman turned to her companions, lowering her voice just enough for Serena to hear. "Poor thing. She doesn't know how it works. The king accepts the offer, seals the truce, gets an heir, and when he tires, he sends the Greywick lamb back to the sty she came from. You're a treaty, dear. Treaties don't become queens." Serena tightened her grip on her fork. She did not answer. Don't give them that pleasure. And then a third. Lady Cressida, the one with the long neck and the ice eyes, who seemed to be competing with the others over who could cut deepest, leaned in with a sweet smile. "Honestly, I think it's a waste of a banquet." She spoke loudly now, for the whole table to hear. Greywick should have burned to the ground when it had the chance. Down to the last hut. Down to the last howling woman. Then we wouldn't have to pretend to dine with the daughter of a... Careful with the next word. The voice came from behind Serena, low and unhurried, and the whole hall went cold. No one had seen Drysten approach. He had been across the hall an instant before, at the head of the table, among counselors, and now he was there, behind Serena's chair, his hand resting on the back a handspan from her shoulder, his whole body turned toward Lady Cressida. There was no shout. There was no throne in the voice. It was worse than that. It was calm. "Finish the sentence, Cressida," he said. "I want to hear it. Say to my face what you think should be done with the woman I am going to wed." The color left Lady Cressida's face. "Majesty, It was only a joke." "Then I'll laugh." He did not laugh. His eyes swept the whole table, lady by lady, and one by one they lowered their heads, their necks exposed, the old instinct forcing them to submit to the alpha without any of them deciding to. "Listen well, because I'll say it only once. This woman will bear my name. Whoever wounds her wounds me. Whoever wishes Greywick burning wishes war, and whoever wishes war can go, fight it at the border, not with their tongue inside my hall." A pause. "Have I made myself clear?" Murmurs of "Yes, Majesty." Bowed heads. Drysten straightened, and without looking at Serena, without a word to her, he turned and went back to the head of the table as if nothing had happened. Serena sat there, her heart stumbling in her chest, her plate forgotten. She had not asked for that. She had not needed it. She had known how to defend herself since she was 6 years old. And even so, something warm and dangerous had opened in the middle of her when he appeared behind her chair. And that frightened her more than all the ladies of the court together. She found him later, alone, on the south wall. She had not planned it. She had gone up for air, to escape the hall, and he was there, elbows on the stone, looking at the forest in the dark. She should have turned back. She didn't. "You have a lot of enemies around here," she said, stopping a few paces off. "I do." He did not turn. "It's the price of the crown. The whole court hates me. The whole court is afraid of you." Now he turned his face. Serena stood side by side with him on the wall, both of them looking at the blackness of the trees, the silence too full. And the question came out before she could hold it. "Why do you do this?" Her voice came lower than she meant. "Why do you help me? I'm a stranger from a kingdom you defeated. I'm a treaty. You heard it down there. You owe me nothing. So why?" Tristan turned to face her, and the air between them changed at once. It warmed, it shrank, it grew dense in that way she had already learned to fear. He took a step. She did not draw back. Their faces came near slowly, the distance dying between them, his mouth coming down to hers, and Serena's heart stopped beating and the whole world narrowed to that last breath of space. And he stopped. His mouth a sigh from hers. Still, his eyes fixed on hers. "No," said Tristan, hoarse, and she felt the word on her own mouth. "Not like this." Serena was not even breathing. "I want you." He said it with no game, no teasing. "From the instant they brought you into that hall. But I won't kiss you again while you kiss me with a plan in your head." His hand rose, his fingers grazing her face, and came down again, without finishing the touch. "I saw your eyes at the stream, Serena. I see them now. You look at me the way you'd measure a target. And when you want me, if you want me, I want it to be you wanting me. Not the knife you brought. Not the mission they gave you. You." He drew away. 1 step. 2. He gave her his back and went off along the wall, leaving her alone with the wind and the forest, and her heart hammering in her chest. And Serena, who had come to Thornhold to kill that man, stood on the cold stone with her eyes burning, furious, furious with him, with his cunning. But more furious, far more furious, with the naked truth she had just discovered about herself, and could no longer push down. She wished he had not stopped. Serena went 3 days without sleep after that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his mouth a sigh from hers, heard the hoarse "I want you," he had said with no game, and felt her whole body lean toward it like a plant toward the sun. And that frightened her more than any sword. "I did not come to fall in love," she repeated, pacing the room in the small hours. "I came to kill the enemy. I buried my mother at 6 years old because of this man's kingdom. I swore it. My uncle trusted me. All of Greywick is waiting." And even so, her heart raced when his scent passed in a corridor. And even so, the wolf sighed his name at night. Every day she spent in Thornhold left her weaker for what she had come to do. Not weaker in body, her body had never been so strong, but weak in will. 1 more month there, and she would not be able to so much as raise the bow against him. Of that she was certain. So it had to be now, before it was too late. Before the foolish heart won the war for good. That afternoon, she took the aconite arrow from the bottom of the mattress for the first time since she had arrived. She ran her thumb along the greenish tip, still deadly, still patient. And she went after him. She found him where she knew he would be at dusk, his refuge behind the woods. Alone, no guard, no court. He stood with his back to her, a few paces off, watching the sun go down among the trees. Off his guard, exposed. A handspan of skin between the shoulder blades, right over the heart. So easy, as she had always known it would be. Serena raised the bow. She knocked the arrow. She drew the string until the fletching touched the corner of her mouth, the motion her body knew better than breathing. The distance was ridiculous. She could not have missed it blind. "Don't do it," said the wolf, and this time it was not a whisper. It was a snarl inside her, loud, urgent. "Don't. Do. It." "Shut up," thought Serena, and loosed. The arrow cut across the clearing straight and swift, right at him, and he caught it out of the air. Drystand spun at the last instant, and his hand closed on the shaft a handspan from his chest. The aconite stopped in the air, the green tip trembling between his fingers. His eyes met hers over the trapped arrow. Serena did not think. Panic took over. Her hand was already flying to the quiver at her back, already knocking another arrow, a common one, already drawing the string, already loosing. He ducked his head, and the arrow passed grazing. She knocked another. Loosed. His forearm came up and struck the shaft in the air, knocking the arrow aside before the tip could come near. "Shoot for real," he said. Serena froze, the string half drawn. "What?" "Shoot, for real." Dristan took a step toward her, the aconite arrow still in his hand. His voice was dangerously calm. "The first came straight at my heart, and I caught it." "Why?" Another step. "You're the finest archer in Greywick. I saw you sink 3 arrows into the same hole with a rotten bow. If you really wanted to kill me, you'd have aimed where I can't reach. You could have aimed at the throat from the side. You had the perfect chance and you shot in a way I could defend against." His eyes burned. "Tell me I'm wrong." She did not. She could not. Because it was true, and the truth was falling now on both of them at once, and she could barely breathe before it. She had shot to miss. She had shot so that he would live. Her hand had failed on purpose, and not even she had known. And Dristan saw it in her face, and he lost control. He came. Straight for her bow, and Serena drew back until her back struck a wall of stone at the edge of the clearing. Cornered. She raised the last knocked arrow, the tip a finger's width from his throat, the only thing between the two bodies. He did not stop. He advanced against her own arrow. Slowly, his eyes on hers. The steel tip touched the skin of his neck, and he kept coming, and a drop of blood ran down his throat. Red, slow, and still he did not stop coming closer. "Stop," whispered Serena. Her hand trembled. "Stop. You're going to—" She lowered the bow. She couldn't. She lowered the bow, because the wolf inside her snarled in fury, not at him, but for him, throwing itself in front of its own mistress to protect him, and Serena had not the strength in all the world to shoot. Dristan took the aconite arrow from his own hand and turned it. He put the green tip against his own chest, over his heart, and closed her fingers around the shaft. "Take this cursed arrow and drive it in," he said, and his voice broke. "Into my neck, into my heart, wherever you want. Do it." He pressed her hand against the shaft. "Because I will not turn away from you. Never. If I ever have to die, let it be by your hand, but I will not lift a finger to defend myself against you again." The arrow trembled between them. Serena's eyes filled with water. The wolf howled inside, coiling around her heart. "Protect him. Protect him." And her hand would not obey. Her hand would not drive it in. Her hand only trembled against his warm chest, feeling his heart beat strong and alive beneath her fingers. She could not. Dristan brought his face close to hers. The drop of blood ran down his throat. "The finest archer in Greywick," he said, low, almost sweet. And the hand fails. Why, Serena? Don't say it, she whispered. Mate. Mate. The one the moon goddess ties together before the two are even born. The word fell between them, and Serena felt the ground give way. No, she said, her voice breaking. Your wolf already chose me. Drystan held her gaze, and in it there was a terrible certainty, bottomless. She chose from the first day. That's why your hand fails. There's no fighting it, Serena. I already stopped fighting. No. She tore her hand from his, drew back against the stone, the aconite arrow falling to the grass between them. The tears came now, hot, furious, unstoppable. Don't say that. You have no right. My mother died because of you, do you hear me? For your crown, for your blood, for your kingdom. I saw my mother fall. I buried everything I had because of what you are. And now you want me to... She did not finish. There was no way to finish. Serena dropped the bow on the grass, beside the arrow that had not gone in, and fled, into the clearing, tears blinding her way, fleeing him, the wolf, the word he had said, and above all the one thing she could no longer deny even to herself, that when he put the arrow against his own chest, the only thing she felt, before the horror, before anything, was dread of losing him. Behind her, in the empty clearing, Drystan did not follow. He stood where he was, the weapon she had brought from so far to kill him, and that she had just dropped at his feet. He closed his eyes. I know, he said quietly, to the forest, to her, who could no longer hear. I know it hurts. But it wasn't me, Serena. And one day you're going to have to find out who it was. Serena ran until her legs gave out. Into the forest, far from the clearing, far from the word he had said, until she fell to her knees in the earth and wept out everything she had been holding for weeks. And when the tears dried and the night grew cold, came the most humiliating truth of all. She had nowhere to go. Greywick lay a few days down the road. To go back empty-handed to her uncle was unthinkable. And worse, something inside her refused to move away from that castle, from that man, no matter how her head ordered her to run. So, in the small hours, she went back. She came in through the back gate and climbed to the too-good room, and no one stopped her, because no one there treated her like a prisoner. And that, now, hurt more than bars. Drystan disappeared the next day, and he stayed gone for 4 days. Serena told herself it was fine. It was what she wanted. Distance, air, room to rearm her head after the clearing. Without him prowling around, she could go back to thinking clearly, remember who she was, why she had come. It was fine. It was the worst of days. She did not eat. She walked the walls looking at the road. The wolf inside her prowled restless, sniffing the wind, searching for a scent that did not come. He left because of me, thought Serena. I shot him. Where is he? The wolf asked, again and again. I don't know, Serena answered, and I don't care. He came back on the 4th night, and he came back bleeding. Serena woke to the uproar, hooves in the courtyard, shouts, doors slamming, the whole castle on its feet in the dark. She was barefoot and running before she thought, going down the stairs, and when she reached the entrance hall, her heart stopped. Drystan was on his knees on the stone floor, held up by 2 guards, his tunic soaked dark, his face without color, his chest rising wrong. The smell of his blood filled the hall, and beneath the blood there was another thing, a sweetish, wrong smell that made the wolf inside her howl in alarm. Stand back, give room! Maeve was already coming at a run, her trembling hands steady again. To his chambers, quickly. Serena crossed the hall without deciding to cross it. What happened? Her voice came out hoarse. Who did this? One of the healers tried to bar her with an arm. This is no place for you, my lady. Go back to your room, this isn't… Let her. Drystan's voice, almost nothing, but it was enough. The guard stopped. He lifted his head, searched for her in the confusion, and when his eyes met hers, something in them loosened with relief. He held out his hand, not to the guards, to her. Serena. She knelt beside him without knowing why. She took the offered hand. It was cold. What did you go and do, you idiot? She whispered, and her voice broke in the middle. The elixir. He gripped her hand with the little strength he had, his eyes fixed on hers, urgent, as if it were more important than his own blood running out. The elixir, Serena. What elixir? What are you talking about? She did not understand. Be quiet. You're bleeding. Let Maeve. It's poison, he said, and he fainted in her arms. She spent the night at his side and could not say, not even to herself, why. Maeve stitched what she had to stitch, cleaned the deep wound in his flank, spoke low words about aconite on the blade and luck that it had not gone deeper, and at last took the others away and left the two of them alone. And Serena stayed, sitting on the edge of the bed. She stayed there the whole night, listening to his breathing steady little by little, watching the color come back slowly to his face, and warring with herself in a war she had been losing for weeks. Why did you go after an elixir? She thought. What elixir? Why is it so important that you nearly died? And the first thing you say when you arrive is not the name of who wounded you, but that. Dristan woke at daybreak, and the first thing he saw was her there, still holding his hand. You stayed, he said, his voice weak, and there was astonishment in it. Don't get used to it. Serena let go of his hand quickly, her face hot. Now talk. What's this business about poison? He tried to sit up, made a grimace, gave it up, and then he told her. That vial you drink every morning, since you were a child. His eyes did not leave hers. It never made you stronger, Serena. It does the opposite. It's a slow poison. With every moon it binds your wolf a little more, weakens you a little more, keeps the beast trapped down there without letting it rise fully. He breathed, slowly. And the worst isn't even that. The worst is that you were born one of the strongest wolves of your line. Luna blood. Someone took all that strength and went on locking it away drop by drop, from when you were a little girl, to make you grow up believing you were born weak. You were never weak. They made you weak on purpose. Serena drew back in the chair. No. The word came out automatic. No, that's… My uncle has given me that vial since I was a girl. He raised me. He pulled me out of the fire. He would never… I know it's hard to believe. His voice was calm, with no triumph in it, and that was worse. That's why I didn't tell you before. I needed to be certain. I went to the source of the elixir, after whoever prepares it, where it comes from. I got too close, and it was your own clan that ambushed me on the road to stop me. He touched his bandaged flank. Wolves of Greywick, with aconite on the blade, to silence a king who was asking too much about a vial. Her head was spinning. It was a lie. It had to be a lie. But the strong wolf, the wolf that woke on the full moon, the new strength she did not know where came from. It doesn't make sense, she said, clinging to what was left. If this poison binds my wolf, then why did it wake? Why am I stronger every day if I never stopped drinking the cursed vial? Dristan was silent a moment. Because you did stop, he said. Weeks ago. I didn't. On the second day you arrived, I had your room searched. We found the 5 vials. Maeve tasted it and told me what it was. He held her gaze steady. I had them switched and filled with bitter root, no poison. Same taste, same color. Put back in the lining of your chest, in the exact place. You've been drinking water with harmless herbs for weeks, Serena. That's why the wolf woke. That's why you crossed that forest on the full moon and shifted whole for the first time in your life. The air left her lungs. Everything. The strength. The wolf speaking. The shift. The body that for the first time in her life obeyed. It had been no miracle at all. It had been him, in silence, asking nothing in return, without even telling her. You, her voice failed. All this time, you knew, and you didn't say. I didn't know who had poisoned you. His eyes were tired, honest. I only knew that someone had taken the strongest wolf I ever crossed and convinced her she was the weakest. I needed to know who. Before I shattered the whole life you believed was true. Serena opened her mouth to deny it again, to defend her uncle, to say it was impossible. And deep inside, clear as a bell, the wolf said, "It's true. Every word. I know the taste of my own cage. I felt it every day. It was you who wouldn't hear me." Maeve came with the vial and confirmed it all, point by point, the pitiless tongue of a healer. What cages, what kills, what makes the drinker wither believing they are being sustained. But it was when Torin came in that Serena's floor cracked for good. The beta brought with him an old woman, bent, her hands stained with tinctures, her eyes lowered in dread. Serena knew her, had known her since she was a girl. "Orla," she whispered, "the healer of Greywick. The one who lived at the back of her uncle's house, the one who boiled roots in dark pots, the one who," Serena realized now with a chill down her spine, handed her uncle, every season, a basket of lead vials. Orla fell to her knees before her. "Forgive me, girl." The old woman was weeping. "May the goddess forgive me. I had no choice. It was him. It was always him. Halvard forced me, year after year, to distill that. Aconite diluted, in the exact measure not to kill, only to bind. Since you were small." Her trembling hand marked the height of a child. "He said it was for your good. I knew it was a lie. And even so I did it, because whoever disobeys Halvard in Greywick doesn't live to tell it." She raised her brimming eyes. "No one dares say aloud what he truly is, girl. That smile he gives you, far from you, he rules Greywick by fear. The whole pack walks the line because they are terrified of him. I wasn't the only one he forced. I was only the one who tampered with your vial." Serena listened and could not breathe. Her uncle, the man who called her girl, who pulled her from the fire, who had sworn to protect her. "Why?" was all she could say. "Why would he do this to me? I'm his blood. I'm all that's left of his sister." That was when a new voice answered from the door. "That is exactly why, child." The old man who came in had a white beard down to his chest and the eyes of one who has seen too much. He walked slowly, with a staff, but there was in him a worn authority of one who had once commanded much. Dryston on the bed made as if to rise in respect, and the old man raised his hand to stop him. "Elder Aldous," Torin introduced, low, to Serena. "He was Alpha of the Council of Packs, before your uncle took his place." Aldous stopped before Serena and looked at her a long while, with a sadness so deep it hurt. "Gods of the heavens," he murmured, "you have her face, your mother's face." "You knew my mother?" "I served her. She was the rightful Luna of Greywick, child. The blood leader of the pack, just and beloved, as her father before her." The old man's voice hardened. "And her brother, Halvard, was only that, the brother. He would never be Alpha. He would never have the throne. Unless she died, and her heir with her. Or the heir survived weak enough never to be able to claim what was hers. The silence in the room went absolute. I spent 18 years piecing together what I am about to tell you, Aldous went on. 18 years since the night Greywick burned, because I never believed the story they told. He struck the staff on the floor. It was not the wolves of Thornhold who burned your village, child. It was not the old king of the north, however much they shouted his name. The wolves that night were mercenaries, paid, disguised in the colors of Thornhold on purpose, so the hatred would fall on the right enemy. His voice dropped. The one who paid them was Halvard, your uncle. No, said Serena, but the word already came out with no strength. Your mother had discovered what he was plotting. She was going to denounce him to the council. He silenced her in the one way that secured everything at once. He killed his own sister, the rightful Luna, laid the blame on Thornhold, took Greywick for himself as regent in the chaos, and lit a war that would serve him. Aldous looked at her with that endless sadness. And you, the heir, the child who was left, he could not kill without raising suspicion. So he did worse. He raised you as a daughter. He caged your wolf drop by drop, so that the strongest of the line would grow up believing she was the weakest, unable ever to turn against him. He trained you at the bow, and he kept you, all these years, for a single end. Serena knew. Before he said it, she already knew. The peace offering, she whispered. A false peace offering, Aldous confirmed, to hand you to the Alpha King of Thornhold, to let him want you close. And to use your hand, the hand of the finest archer in Greywick, to sink an aconite arrow into his heart. With the king dead by the hands of a bride of Greywick, the war would explode again, Thornhold would fall into chaos, and Halvard, in the middle of the smoke, would take the other packs, with no one strong enough to face him. The old man bowed his head. Everything you hated your whole life, child, was a lie he stitched together. Even the hatred that brought you here was his weapon. Serena was on her feet without noticing she had risen. Everything spun, her mother falling. Drink, girl, without this you can't even hunt. The cold vial every morning. Let him lower his guard, and then an arrow. Every day of her life, a chain she herself had helped tighten, thanking the jailer for it. Is it true? She asked, but not of Aldous, nor of Orla, nor of Drystan. She asked within. And the wolf, which 18 years of poison had silenced, rose whole and answered with a certainty that shook Serena to the bone. It's true. I always knew. And now you know too. So let me wake. And she woke. Serena fell to her knees in the middle of the room, but this time she felt no pain. She felt only strength. She felt the wolf unfold inside her, enormous, ancient, Luna blood running in every vein. The air of the room seemed to shrink. The candle guttered. Maeve stepped back, her mouth open, and even Torin, the beta, felt the old instinct pull his head down. Before a woman, before a wolf, whose power filled the room like a tide. Drystan on the bed, smiled despite the pain. There you are, more whole than ever, he said, low. Serena raised her face, and when she spoke, her voice no longer trembled. There was no lamb left in it. There was no frightened girl clutching a vial. There was the heir of Greywick, awake, whole, stronger than her uncle would ever let her be, and furious in a way that 18 years of poison had dammed up drop by drop. Where is he? She said. It was not a question, and it was Torin who answered, grim, from the door, with the news that had just come up the northern road. Coming here. The beta met her eyes. Halvard knows he's been found out. He's gathered the warriors he has and is marching on Thornhold this very moment. To finish by force what you didn't carry out. Serena rose from the floor. Good, said the wolf inside her, and this time the two spoke with a single voice. Let him come. Halvard arrived on the night of the full moon. He came up the northern road with everything he had managed to gather. Warriors of Greywick torn from their own homes, grey-furred wolves with hunger in their eyes, marching behind the regent who governed them by fear. They did not come for a cause. They came because they were more afraid of staying than of dying. And at the head of them all, mounted, the face that Serena had called uncle her whole life, Halvard. Dristan wanted to climb to the wall, even wounded. Serena caught him by the arm at the top of the stairway, the whole fortress in an uproar below them, torches running, the royal guard taking position. You can barely stand, she said. It's my kingdom. They're at my door. And it's my uncle who has come here. She gripped his arm. This debt is mine, Dristan. It's been mine for 18 years. You just didn't know it. He looked at her, and for the first time, there was no teasing in his face, no king, no mask. Only a man afraid of losing the one thing that mattered. I just found you, he said, low. Don't ask me to watch you walk into that. Serena raised her hand and touched his face. The gesture came naturally, with no plan at all, for the first time in her life. I'm not a princess for you to lock in a tower, Dristan. Her voice came firm, but low. I know how to fight. And do you know who taught me? He did. He put a bow in my hand when I was still a girl, and spent 18 years honing me to kill a king. She held his gaze. They made me a weapon against you. Let me be the weapon that turns against him. She held out her hand. Give me the arrow. Dristan looked at her a long instant. Then he brought his hand to his belt and drew out the aconite arrow. The same she had brought sewn into her sleeve, the same she had dropped in the grass of the clearing, the one he had gathered up and kept close to his body all those days. The weapon forged to kill him. He put it in her hand. Take it. His hand closed a moment over hers, over the shaft. And I'm going with you. No. She was already turning to the steps. You can barely stand. And I've already heard that. He came down the first step behind her, unhurried, unyielding. It's no use, Serena. The fight is yours, the arrow is yours, the decision is yours. I won't take any of them from you. But I'm coming along. If you fall, I want to be close enough to catch you. She stopped. She looked back, at the wounded man coming down behind her as if it were the most natural thing in the world. She did not argue. She already knew she would not win this one. The gate of Thornhold opened, and the courtyard became one confusion of teeth and steel. The warriors of Greywick charged, and the royal guard met them head-on, wolf against wolf, claw against sword, the full moon white over everything. Serena came dressed for what she was, combat leather, the quiver at her back, the bow in one hand, and fixed to her belt, the aconite arrow. She did not need to turn beast to cut a path. The Luna blood, awake at last, ran in her even in a woman's form, and the wolves of Greywick who crossed in front of her drew back before a power they recognized by instinct, before they understood it. She was not there for the soldiers. She was looking for one man, and she found him where she knew he would be, never in the front line. Rounding the flank, far from the steel, climbing up the side toward the top of the stairway, where the fortress was easiest to take. Halvard had not come to fight a war. He had come to finish a task, to kill the Alpha King with his own hands, since the niece had failed, and to rekindle the slaughter that would serve him. Serena cut off his path in the middle of the stairway. There was no warning. The bow came up in a single motion, the string drawn until the fletching touched the corner of her mouth, and she loosed. The aconite arrow crossed the steps and sank deep into her uncle's chest. Halvard staggered a step. He looked at the green shaft in his own chest, and he laughed. Ah, girl. He closed his hand on the arrow and drew it out slowly, like someone pulling a thorn, not a shadow of pain in his face. Do you think I'd distill a death like this my whole life without keeping the cure for myself? I drink the antidote every morning, since before you were born. He threw the arrow onto the stone. Your poison does not touch me. Her blood went cold half a second. The only weapon she had, the one that had crossed a continent sewn into her sleeve, fallen useless on the steps. Halvard opened his arms, his voice going back to the sweetness of every morning of her life. Look at you. Look at what you've become without your remedy. Out of control, the sick wolf loose, exactly as I warned. Come home with me. I'll take care of you. I always took care of you. 18 years of that voice. The child inside her still wanted to believe, but the wolf did not. He killed our mother, said the wolf, and it was not a whisper. I was there. I saw it, from the bottom of the hollow between the roots. It was you who wouldn't let me remember. Serena raised her chin. You're right about one thing. Her voice did not tremble. I've become someone else. But it wasn't without the remedy, Uncle. It was without your poison. She saw his smile falter. I know everything. My mother, Greywick, the mercenaries in the colors of Thornhold. The vial you gave me from the time I was 6 to keep me small. You didn't raise me, Uncle. You caged me. You bound my wolf drop by drop and honed my hand to make me a weapon that could never turn against you. Your mother was weak, he spat, the sweetness turning to pure hatred. Greywick needed strength, not her soft justice, and you are mine. I made you, and what I make I unmake. He leaped, wolf in mid-leap, an enormous gray-furred beast straight for her throat. And this time Serena did not draw back. She needed no one between her and her uncle. Her wolf burst out in the middle of her own scream. Enormous, ancient, Luna blood dammed up for 18 years, breaking free all at once. And where there had been a woman with a bow in her hand, there was now a beast his equal. She met Halvard in the air. At the side of the stairway, Dryston saw her uncle leap and his heart stopped. The beast inside him roared to go, his body already giving in to the shift over the aconite wound, the instinct to throw himself between her and death as he would 1,000 times. But she was faster. And he understood, in the middle of that single second, with his own wolf howling to charge, that the hardest and most loving thing he could do there was to stay, to hold the beast back, to let her fight, at last, the battle that had always been hers alone. He stayed. His hands clenched, the blood of his flank running out beneath his hand, his whole body trembling with the effort not to charge. And he watched. The two wolves collided at the top of the stairway in a knot of teeth and fury, and the whole courtyard seemed to stop before it. Halvard was large and cruel and seasoned. But he was a man who had spent his life counting on her weakness. And her weakness had never existed. It had been manufactured, drop by drop, moon after moon, and now not a single chain remained. She pinned him against the stone. It was quick, and it was fierce, and there was nothing sick or weak in it. The Luna of Greywick threw the whole weight of what she had always been over the man who had spent his life swearing she was nothing. He thrashed. He snarled. And for the first time in her life, she saw fear in her uncle's face. She did not let go. When at last she drew back, panting, returning to a woman's skin, Halvard lay fallen on the steps. A man again, his chest rising wrong, his wide eyes meeting hers with an astonishment she would carry forever. For that, he had no antidote. You didn't make me, said Serena, on her knees beside him. The tears came, because even a monster had been the only family she had ever known, and grief does not choose its hour. My mother made me, and she was not weak. She died trying to denounce you. That is the opposite of weak. Halvard opened his mouth. No word came. Only the last breath, and then not even that. The regent of Greywick died on the stairway of the kingdom he had tried to destroy, by the hand of the girl he had sworn he loved. The silence spread through the courtyard like water. One by one, the warriors of Greywick lowered their claws. The scent in the air had changed. The fear that bound them died with Halvard, and in its place rose another, ancient, that they recognized without ever having smelled it, that of the rightful Luna, alive again, at the top of the stairway. It was a grizzled wolf who was first. It lay down on the stone, lowered its head, bared its throat. Then another. Then the whole row, wolves and men, kneeling before her. The heir they had sent away as a lamb to the slaughter, and who had come back as what she had always been beneath the poison. The Luna of Greywick. The strongest that pack had ever had. Serena stood at the top of the steps, panting, whole, and for the first time in 24 years looked at her own people with no chain between them. Greywick was hers, not by conquest, by right, by blood. Lower down, leaning on the stone of the stairway, Dristan watched her, his flank bleeding beneath his hand, and in his face a bottomless pride. Serena went down to him, and he, stubborn, let go of the stone and climbed a step toward her as well, without waiting. They met in the middle of the stairway, she arriving just in time to hold him, her arm firm at his waist. For an instant, neither of them said anything. They did not need to. "You're the worst person in the world at staying on your feet," she said, her face against his neck. "And even so, this is where you came." His voice came out a thread, but with laughter beneath it. "I noticed." Much later, when the last of the wounded had been gathered, and the courtyard finally fell silent, the two of them went out alone into the forest behind the fortress. No court, no elders. Only them and the dark of the trees. "You should be lying down," she said. "You're barely healed from an aconite stab, and you're already coming down a stairway after me in the middle of a war. I heal faster with you near." Dristan took her face between his hands. "It's the truth. It always was. I sleep better knowing you're within these walls. I became a whole man the day they brought you on your knees into my hall, hating me with everything you had." He rested his forehead against hers. "I love you, Serena of Greywick, since before I knew your name. My wolf knew first. I took longer because a man is a fool, but I got there." She looked at the man before her. The king who had spared her when he could have killed her, who had drawn the poison out of her in silence, asking nothing, who had put his own arrow against his chest and said, "Drive it in," who, wounded and aching to throw himself in the way, had held himself back so as not to rob her of the one fight that was hers alone, and stayed close, ready to catch her if she fell. And then, of her own will, not by the mark, not by fate, not by the wolf that had chosen him first, but because she, Serena, chose it now. She pulled her hair to the side, tilted her head, and offered her neck to Dristan Vor. "Claim me," she said. And he chose. The bite was quick, and it hurt, and then nothing hurt anymore. Because the moment his teeth sealed the mark on her neck, the bond closed between the two of them like a circle that had waited a lifetime to complete. Serena felt his heart inside her own chest, his soul pressed to hers. There was no arrow between them anymore, no enemy, no mission, no kingdom against kingdom. Only that. The two of them, whole at last. When he drew his face away, the mark throbbing warm on her neck, he stayed a moment, only looking at her. "Do you know what I thought that first day?" He said low. "That they had sent me a lamb that didn't know how to lower its head." "I remember." She almost laughed. "You called me little lamb in front of the whole court." "I did." His thumb ran over the new mark. And in the end, the little lamb was a wolf, the strongest I've ever seen. His voice dropped, laughter and surrender in the same breath. Don't ever let me forget it. Don't worry. Her wolf stretched inside her, satisfied. I'll remind you every day, preferably armed. Dryston looked into her eyes and laughed. The Alpha King a whole continent feared, wholly surrendered to a woman, and glad to be. And this time, when the wolf spoke, Serena did not tell it to hush. Mine. There was still much ahead. Kingdoms torn by war, a whole Greywick to pull out of the fear Halvard had drowned it in, broken packs to raise up again, a crown that was now hers, and that she would still have to learn to carry. But that was tomorrow. That night, in the same clearing where her wolf had woken, there was no kingdom, no war, no mission. Only a man, a wolf whole at last, and a whole life ahead, to live together, this time by choice.